So what we want to do today really is cover off what are your options with Arlon and the 5-year range, because there's more and more products getting added to this industry, you know, day by day, and it can get a little overwhelming, as I imagine. We want to cover that off, and then we want to really dig into how best to spec the right product for the job, and then ultimately get some knowledge out of Callum and James around how to best use the products. And I said in there tips and tricks, but what we're not trying to do is show you ways, as Callum rightly pointed out to me, is we're not trying to get you to cut corners. We actually just want to make sure that the job is done right the first time. And that comes down to the right film, you know, design in the right way, speccing the whole 9 yards. So these guys will be the ones to help us cover that off. So how this format works is that you'll see down the bottom of your screen, you've got a button called Q&A. So any questions during this, please feel free to interrupt, type your comment into there. And then what I'll do is I'm effectively going to MC, and I'm just going to watch the comments, things like that, and pipe up and ask Callum or James your question. Or if something that you don't feel comfortable typing, you really want to actually speak, then you'll see a button there called raise your hand. And what we'll do is we'll unmute you to ask your question. So look, without further ado, I'll let these guys get straight into it and introduce themselves. And yeah, everybody have fun. Please sing out. If you have any questions, please just let us know. And yeah, love your feedback as we get going. All right, thanks guys, all yours.
Thanks, Steve. All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. If you caught my webinar last time with Computaleta, you will have you'll be familiar with me and a bit of my background. I'm Callum James. I'm the technical wrap specialist for Arlon Graphics, and I cover the ANZ region. So had we not been on lockdown, I would have been hopefully flying over and meeting you guys face to face and running training over there. So I'm looking forward to when I can travel again and come over and actually do some face-to-face training. But in lieu of that, we're trying to connect with as many people as we can online. So we're going to be running through some products here today, talking about the differences and how best to use them, as Steve touched on. And I've got James Smith here with us. James, do you want to explain your position?
Yes, certainly, Cal. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. My name's James Smith, and I'm the Regional Sales Manager at Arlon for Victoria, South Australia and Western Australia over here in Australia. As part of my role in the small ANZ Arlon team, I'm also the product manager. So I've decided to jump in today and just help Cal out with any technical details that he might have, or any questions that you guys might actually have. So he's the brains behind all the hands-on stuff, but I'm certainly here to help with any of the technical aspect of the product. So certainly fire away if you've got any questions, and thanks for having us.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And please, and I know Steve said, told you how to use the Q&A and raise your hand. I'm really keen to have engagement from you guys and address things that you guys want to know. Any questions, problems that you're having, anything that you want to ask, please don't be shy. So yeah, like James said, I'm the sort of hands-on expert. James is the product expert. So hopefully together we can cover off any questions that you have. I'm just going to share a couple of photos. If you did catch the last webinar, you would have seen a little slideshow that I did. These photos here are of the two coolest things I've ever been able to do. I used to work for a company called Exotic Graphics, and we won a competition called Rap Like a King. We won with this one here for the first year, and then the second year we won with the Beetle here. So hopefully you've seen those cars around and you're familiar with them on social media. Feel free to ask anything related to those as well, how I did those. I'm happy to chat about that as well. But that's to give you a bit of background as to what I've done. So I've been in the industry for 15 years now. And James, how long have you been? You've been quite a few years as well.
I've been in the industry since the start of 2011. I worked for a distributor over here in Australia in Melbourne up until the end of 2018. and then came across to Arlon at the end of 2018. So very familiar with a lot of different products within the industry, not just self-adhesive vinyls, but heat transfer vinyls, printers, papers and things like that. And also I'm very familiar with some of the competitive products out there, such as Metamark and Avery, a couple of products that I sold a bit of in my previous role. But
yeah, which the guys will be familiar with.
18 months into my time at Arlon.
Excellent. All right, so we'll start with a couple of calendared products. So what are we going to start with? 4500. We're just going to touch on
4550 GTX, I think, was the one we're going to look at. Cal.
4550. Yep.
Yeah, because I know the guys at Computaleta, they've got some stock in late last year, and it's done quite well. And then they've had some more stock arrive last week, I think it was. So the real sort of intermediate vinyl that can be used for real sort of basic car graphics and things like that.
Yeah. So basically, yeah. So if you were if you had a car come in and you could tell that they didn't need anything to go over any deep recesses, they just wanted a basic print and it didn't have to last. I mean, how long would we recommend that on a car sort of?
Look, it's a 5-year product vertically in
vertically, yeah. Okay. Yep. So what we're going to compare 4550 and then the step up from that. Sorry, I've just pinned all my products up here. So we're going to run through 4600 as well.
Yep, we'll go to 4600 GLX. There is a matte version of that product out now as well. And there's also a couple of different options which some of the guys might not be familiar with. You've got it with either the 3420 laminate, which is what it's traditionally been sold with. But we have seen more and more over here in Australia, customers looking at teaming it up with a cast laminate to get that extra life out of the product. You will also find that with the 4600, it does have that low profile adhesive system. So it is a little bit easier to install versus the 4550.
Yeah. And 4600 is just a great all-round product. Super versatile. It's really, really good. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have my GLX with me, but I've got the MLX up here.
Yeah.
So does anybody have? So can anybody? Does anybody want to ask any questions related to those intermediate products?
I do have one question that's come through, just the difference between 4550 and 4500,
yes.
Which is a valid question. So 4500 was traditionally our intermediate polymeric that was made out of the United States, with the 4550 now being an option which now comes out of China. They are very, very similar. The raw materials all come from the same suppliers and things like that. The product out of America, it is 75 microns for the base film and 75 microns for the laminate, as where with this construction, we've got a 70 micron film and 80 micron laminate, and it's also a 50 meter roll. So you do get 10% more, but it's priced much more competitively than our 4500 range. The product was initially brought out for our European market, and then late last year we've brought it out here in Australia for the ANZ market as well.
Yeah, great. Okay, I just saw that question come in. So then if people were stepping up to sort of more partial wraps, you know, I know you guys are using a bit of SLX over there, which is suitable for complete full coverage, full wraps. If you wanted to do, you can still use your 4600 on curves, but I wouldn't use that wrapping over and into deep recesses. Another option that we have is our premium polymeric wrap film, which is called Fusion Wrap. Now, I believe you guys, I don't know if there's much of that on the ground there at the moment, but it is a really good product, and that could be something that we're looking at sending over there. Isn't that right, James?
Yes, it is. So the Fusion, our premium polymeric, it is a little bit thinner than the 4600, but does have the flight technology, which Cal was talking about last week with the SLX. And even though it's a polymeric base film, we do actually team it up with what we call an intermediate cast product as well, just to make it that little bit thinner and also to give it that extra durability as well.
Yeah, so if you guys are familiar with the adhesive system with flight technology on SLX and you like that, then Fusion Wrap will perform very, very, very similarly to that. It's the highest performing polymeric product you're going to find on the market. It's actually amazing, and it will do almost everything that you try to get it to do, but we don't recommend using it for deep channels. However, if you try, I've tested it and it wraps into crazy deep channels. It's just not rated to stay there long term. So I would be anywhere where you don't have a deep recess, but you've got convex curves are all fine. It'll handle pretty curved guards and flares and stuff like that. Anywhere where the curve is convex, it's absolutely fine, and it's amazing, and it's a lot better value than SLX if you're doing that price point of job where you don't need a full cast product. So yeah, that really comes down to planning and designing the job to suit the product. So if you have a client comes in and they want, a decent amount of coverage on their van, they want a partial wrap, say 3/4, and it's got those false windows, it's got those recesses at the back windows like high aces and stuff like that. If you can make your design avoid those recesses, and then downgrade to a slightly lower spec product, you will really increase your profitability on the job. Obviously, some people are going to insist on things going over deep channels, and they want everything to be wrapped in and all that. So I would be discussing that with the client and giving them options and saying if they want those deep channels, if they want that wrapped look, then they're going to be paying that premium price. And if they're happy for it to miss a deep channel, miss a door cup, that sort of stuff, then you can really open up other products. You could use a 4600 or a Fusion Wrap. And really,
I just wanted to touch on Melissa's comment that she just put through before. So she just said we may have answered this. Sorry, so excuse me, but GTX 4550 is a very similar name to GTX 4560, which we had about 5 years ago at Computaleta, which failed a few years ago. Is this a new and improved version? So it's where would we count this? Where would we count 4550 now in our market versus the older film?
The 4550 is a like for like replacement for 4500. Yep. It is just made in our different factory out of Arlon, China versus our Placentia factory. The base film for 4550, it is 70 microns versus 75. The laminate is 80 microns instead of 75. I know 4560 wasn't around once when I started with Arlon. I think the replacement product off the top of my head might have been the 4500 GT and the 4500 GLX. So the problems that did exist with 4560, they had been addressed. New products had been made, and the 4560 construction is no longer. I'm unable to give any sort of further information on what those problems were.
Yeah, and look, Melissa, I'd love to get some details from you, Melissa, on what the fail was and back in the day as well, that we can hopefully get rid of with this next film. But yeah, this is the first 5-year economical film we've had that's made for cars in a long time. So our first entry we've had for a long time has been 4600, which I know we'll talk about, but this for us is the first one we've had in a wee while. So we're pretty excited to get that out there, and we've had a great start to it. So Melissa, if you can, I'll put my email in the chat as well. So I'd love to hear from you on just what that problem was, and then yeah, we can get in touch and make sure it doesn't happen again. All right, sorry, back over to you guys.
Cheers. So I just thought I'd mention when you were talking about Arlon China, it's a good time to note that the stuff coming out of Arlon China is absolutely top notch in terms of quality, and everything is run to the exact same standards as it is in the Californian manufacturing facility. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with the differences between cast and calendared, but I just wanted to touch on, a lot of people think because calendared film is cheaper, that means that it's manufactured with cheaper products or inferior products, and that's actually not the case at all. The reasons that calendared film is cheaper on the market is because it has much lower manufacturing costs. So there isn't a need for solvent to turn it into a liquid organosol. It's created as a dough and then squeezed through rollers. It doesn't need as much heat when it's being produced. It can be produced a lot faster. So the actual overall efficiency of making a calendared film is far greater than a cast film. But the actual quality of the ingredients are as high as the quality of the cast ingredients. So it's not an inferior product. It's just a different construction, a different way of making vinyl. And when you use it on the right jobs, it can be more profitable, I think, when used in the right setting. Did you have anything to add to that, James, the constructions or?
No, nothing to add. You can also get increased life with your calendared product if you do decide to put a cut over laminate.
Yes, that's a good point.
Over the product as well. So, and that is also how our product, the Fusion, came about. The highest quality polymeric product with the flight technology, but also with a cast laminate to go over the top of it. So if you do need to get that extra durability, don't be afraid to mix and match. Obviously, we don't want you to put a lower quality laminate over the base film, but certainly a high quality laminate over the base film can give you a much better durability and a much better life of the graphic as well.
Yeah. And if you're using a product like a Fusion wrap or 40, well, actually any of the polymerics or calendared products, if you've used a cast laminate, then that that layer isn't trying to pull back off the film at all. It's the cast is made to conform and set into those curves. So that's why, our Fusion product will outperform any other polymeric on the market.
So I've got a question from David here.
Yes.
But I'm just not quite sure. Are you able to just type that question back for me, please, David? Is it possible to print on the backing the type of film? Sorry, David, if you could just type that through again, that'd be great.
So does anybody have any questions about quoting jobs or, choosing the right film at the start of the job? Well, I'm interested in what you guys are finding out in the market. If clients come to you and, have a product in mind, do they come and say, I want this to be a full cast wrap, or do they just say, I want graphics here and here? You guys choose. When I worked at Exotic Graphics, we had some pretty fussy customers who got pretty educated, I guess, and would come and ask for specific products and specific brands. And sometimes it was a bit misguided, I guess, but a lot of what I used to do was direct people into basically what we wanted to do. So we would gently coerce them into doing, if it was a partial wrap, we'd try to encourage them to miss the door handles. Ultimately, you can get the job on a lot faster, but you don't need to pass, every single cent of that saving back onto them. If one job costs $1,500 to do, wrapping through the door cups, but you can save yourself hours and still charge them $1,200 to miss the door cups, you can actually get a really profitable job. You can get it in and out quickly. The vinyl hasn't wrapped into any deep door cups or deep recesses, which eliminates any chance of, popping, or if it hasn't gone into a channel, then it can't pop, right? So choosing the vinyl, picking the right vinyl for the job, and communicating with the customer about what they're going to get, I think is really the ultimate tip that I can give. If you were to have a client come in and you just made that call for them and didn't really talk it through at the start, they may be surprised. They may have been expecting it to wrap further. I'm also a big fan of if you do have to put a graphic across a deep recess, say like a false window on a van, on a cargo van, Mercedes Sprinters and that sort of thing, give them the option of patching the recess. And different markets might respond differently to that. I know some people don't like patching at all. They think it's, a bit of a sin to have to release a recess, that you should be able to wrap it in. And I totally agree. And with a high quality cast product, you should always be able to wrap into your deep channels. But the client doesn't always necessarily need that. If it's a commercial job, a fleet job, but they want full coverage, give them the option. Say, we don't have to use a cast for this, even though it's going across the recess. We're going to put our knifeless tape down. We're going to trim and release that so that when it wraps in, it's not stretching in, it's just laying in. Cover it up with another strip of vinyl, or leave it, depending on what they want. They're going to get that added durability. And if you are clever with your joins and your overlaps, no one's going to notice from a meter or two back, especially when it's on the road. So those sort of things, I'm very pro releasing and patching for anything other than high-end jobs. If it's obviously if you're talking a color change or a really high-end custom job, people are going to have higher expectations. But I'd prefer to know that it's not stretched where possible. It gives you that peace of mind that the job's not going to come back. Ultimately, that will save you time. Not having to do any redos, reprints, fix-ups, that will save you time and money in the long run, even if the job on the day didn't go out the door quicker. If one job comes back and you have to replace it at your cost, well, it's undone a lot of other time-saving things you might have tried to squeeze in. So,
hey, what about a tip for anonymous attendee on how do you work out a meter rate on some full wraps?
Work out a meter rate.
Yeah.
Do you mean how do you work out how much you're going to need? You mean?
I'm assuming they were meaning for charging, but maybe if you could just elaborate that.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a tricky one to give just a one-off answer, because I'm very keen on I like to get really efficient with my vinyl usage, and that's another thing I'll think of when I'm designing anything. If you can fit something, if there's a stripe that goes down the side of the car and you can get it under 700 mil, well then right off the bat, you can fit two of those on a 1500 wide roll. Anytime you've got something that's a triangle or on a diagonal, you might be able to flip it and nest two together. So I'm always trying to design, thinking about squeezing more onto the vinyl. If you've got a repeat job, if you've got a customer comes in and says they've got 3 vans, 4 vans, whatever the case, then I would take the time. You've only got to muck around for another half an hour to an hour when you're doing the design and the pre-press. If you can squeeze more on the job, you get way more out of your material, but the client doesn't necessarily need to know that you've halved your material costs, because you can still quote it as if it's a one-off job. So you still measure the job. It's using 15 meters of vinyl. Well, then 2 of them are using 30 meters, but actually you might get 2 out of 20 meters. And those are the savings that that you gain yourself, because that's your expertise and your efficiency.
Okay. Hey, and Grant's got a good question here. What are the likely risks of laminating almost immediately after printing? And also, what is the shortest recommended time frame for laminating after printing? Thanks.
So what type of printing? And I know, so eco-solvent, anything solvent, minimum of 48 hours outgassing. And I know that might sound like a long time. There are definitely situations that you can speed that up, but as a default, I wouldn't push anything under 48 hours. If you were to hang the whole print up on a wall and put a fan on it and it's a nice warm day, yeah, that number might drop. But I don't like to tell people anything less than 48 hours for solvent, especially if they roll it up. The common way is sort of just to loosely unroll the core and sort of try to just loosely spiral the vinyl and sit it on something. It's really hard to get good airflow through every single layer. Some might be spaced out, others might not. That can be a bit of a concern because the gases can sort of linger. Latex is different. And I know that people will often print and laminate straight away. I still don't like laminating instantly, even on latex. It can have this sort of like, almost like condensation on it that can feel just a little bit damp and a little bit, it is really like there's water vapor or something on the film. And I have seen instances where it's come straight off the printer, laminated, and then the laminate just hasn't wanted to stick. So that really comes down to the heat settings on your printer and all that sort of stuff, the weather, the conditions. So there's no one answer for that. It's so variable, humidity, temperature in your room. But yes, solvent is a big one. Anything, and look, I've seen people laminate solvent straight away, and it probably seems fine right then and there, but there's gases that get trapped that have nowhere else to go but out through the adhesive at that point. And that's when you're going to see bubbling and failure. So it's just not, I don't think it's worth it.
Right. Okay.
Through a solvent.
And Anonymous has elaborated on full digital print wrap. So, I mean, again, it's a pretty open-ended question, I guess, but it's like, yeah, what sort of markup? Like, I mean, if you feel comfortable talking about that, I mean, it's price is such a big thing, right? What's your past brought you when you're pricing up a job and things like that, allowing, I guess, you know, allowing for film, time, you know, mistakes, that kind of thing. It's like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that is open-ended.
I don't want to answer that one.
How much does a wrap cost? I mean, I know, so I can give you an idea, and I think the markets will be slightly different as well, but in my time with Exotic, they were obviously a premium wrap shop and they priced accordingly. So if anybody said they wanted a full wrap, the first thing we said was 5,000, just straight off the bat. It didn't mean that every wrap would come in at $5,000, but like full wrap, I'm talking roof coverage, everything. But it kind of determines who's serious about it. And if people were thinking it's going to be $1,200–1,500 for a full wrap, well then it kind of ends the discussion right then and there, and it's probably saves you a lot of time and headaches. Yeah, that's a tricky one. James, do you have any thoughts on pricing? It's so subjective, really. There's so many differences.
Yeah, no, it's totally subjective, and yeah, I wouldn't even want to attempt to try and answer that question. Because
it depends on the product, how you're finishing it. If you're printing individual panels, or if you're printing, I'm assuming you'd be wanting to print the whole side of the vehicle and just cut and drop your door edges and stuff like that. I mean, I wouldn't be wanting to do any full, you know, there's people out there doing full color changes for $1,500, full digitals for 18 to $2,000, and I think it's just way too cheap. You've really got to account for give yourself, cover all your costs, cover your overheads, cover your time well, and allow for a mistake or a redo, because if you don't, you're sort of just undercutting the market, I believe. But again, I'm not familiar with the New Zealand market.
Speaking of mistakes and redos, Cal, do you have a template or anything on what percentage you should allow for a mistake or a redo? Like if the job's going to be $4,000, do you want to try and allow % of that for a redo or a mistake? Do you have any formulas around that you might be able to help Anonymous with?
I would well, that's a really good question. I would generally, if it's a van, or if a good rule of thumb is to allow for the biggest panel on the car. So if you have, well, hang on, I'm coming into the other shot here. If you have a van side and there's the large rear quarter section is say 2 meters by the full width by 1500, you at least want to allow and have your costs covered to completely redo that panel. So that if it's not, it could be that, it could be a door, it could be the bonnet. Either way, you've sort of allowed for that extra material. But that's, that's a rule of thumb. And that might only apply for a one-off job. If you're doing a fleet of jobs, that's when I would, again, get really efficient about how you nest your prints. Think about, is there a different way that I can I hide a join somewhere? If it doesn't have to be color change quality, they just want a good commercial wrap. Can I hide a join somewhere along a swage line and allow me to separate that print and nest it even better? That's when you're really going to start picking up time on production. You're going to save material and save install time. If you're working with smaller pieces, it might make it easier for a one-person install if you can break it up. But again, so subjective. Depends on the job. Depends on the material, the van. Now, if you're doing something like a Hyundai iLoad, they're obviously known as one of the trickier things to wrap. You probably want to add a bit more on for an iLoad because you may have more problems. That's definitely one where I'd be looking at patching those recesses, at least doing it in 2 parts.
Have you got any horror stories of your biggest redo over your wrapping journey?
Oh, there'd be a lot, but not a lot just based on pure sort of user error or product failure. The biggest ones would be communication errors, actually. The biggest problems would have been if, somebody was rushing, someone designed something. We'd had prints go on the wrong car once because 2 cars arrived that were the same brand and got parked next to each other, and the prints got put on the wrong car. So at that point, you've rushed and it costs you big time. So yeah, I wouldn't, you're going to have those freak accidents from time to time. Someone's going to drop a print or you're going to rip it, tear it, overstretch it. A lot of things can happen. Ultimately, you want to be able to get away with doing something like that once in a while and for it still to come out in the wash. If you're pricing everything so sharp that you can't afford to redo a panel, well, ultimately that's not sustainable. We actually found that was much better, even if the client came back and had a bit of an issue with something that was not our fault. Say, even if for a fact that they've sort of dinged something themselves and they're trying to be a bit cheeky and say, hey guys, this scratch in the vinyl you must have done this when you were installing it and that you didn't. There were definitely times that we would just, if it was a small enough redo, we would just wear the cost, keep the client happy, get them back out the door quickly. It's often a better use of your time, especially if you've allowed for that extra bit of vinyl, to just sort of work with them, resolve it, get them out, keep them happy. Then it can often be better to do that than to fight and sort of stand your ground on things and push back. It can may save you time for your installers, but it may waste time for anybody in the office or your account people or anybody on the phone.
Yeah, we've been asked around the warranty on 4550 on vehicles. Are you guys able to elaborate on that a bit and how it works?
That's for you, James.
James?
So we in regards to our warranty system, we are redoing it all for 2020. It has been something that Cal's been looking into ourselves. It probably has been a slightly weaker point from us. We are looking at certifying installers and things like that. So obviously all of this has taken a little bit of a back seat since COVID's come on board, and it's slowed a lot of our processes down. So, but yes, we are able to warrant the 4550 along with the 4600 Fusion SLX. But we are hoping to be able to bring in some bigger and better warranty for later on in the year for big fleet jobs and things like that. We are also looking at trying to certify our installers as well. It's something that we have been a little bit weak on versus our competitors, which have got some really good certification programs out there. Cal's actually participated in a couple of our programs over in the US and was in New York earlier this year. So we've started to roll them out in North America. Ones over in North America aren't tied in with a warranty. It is something that we're looking at doing with the ANZ region. We haven't decided one way or the other at the moment, but it has been traditionally very hard for Arlon to be able to have anything around certification for installers because we've never had anyone with the experience like Cal on the ground. So certainly watch this space in terms of the programs that we're looking at running in the near future. So yeah, we are getting there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've got anything else to add on that one, Cal.
Well, just that it will be a sort of a total, when we say certification, it will be for the shop, and it will cover, so it'll cover the installers who are working in the shop, but it'll also cover, you know, there will be checks done for stock handling and print, you know, there needs to be a bit of, you know, looking into the whole process. So it won't just be certifying the installer, it'll be certifying the business, and then there'll be some terms around, you know, if the staff who were there at the time of certification all left, then we would need to recertify the shop. But it will be, and it will be based more for people that are doing, I guess, more fleet stuff and bigger volumes of stuff. But yeah, it's all in the works. We've hit a few roadblocks with COVID-19, but it's definitely something that we're going to try and pick up again pretty soon.
Right, without putting you on the spot, Cal, but I like doing this. So look, you've walked into a shop, right? You've come over to New Zealand. You've walked into one of our shops, one of our lovely customers, and we're looking at a 5-year film that's going on vehicles. What's one of the most common things you see people do that maybe you roll your eyes or you pull your hair out going, mate, don't do it like that. Let me show you something. Like what would be your go-to tip or trick? Not cutting corners, no, but just something, you know, so some advice that you'd be giving to people on the spot. Because I get it, right? Like we're trying to do trainings and share the knowledge right online, and it's really different, like as everyone would understand, like, you know, without being there in person. So I'm trying to like just visualize it, right? Like we're walking to the shop and we're there, and Bob's showing us this is how he's always done these wraps for 10 years, and you're like, no mate, look, let me show you this XYZ of what we can do, and you pick the product on maybe whatever you want to use, but just think outside the box. Or like what could we show these guys on something that will save some frustration, maybe.
You mean physically show you?
If you can physically show, yes, that'd be great. But if not, like I get calendar, it is hard to demo live. Definitely compared to cast. So, but it is, even if it's just talking people through it or just something like that, you know.
That's a really good question. The biggest thing,
All good questions.
I know. The biggest thing that I see that I guess, like you said, makes me pull my hair out is people that just run with, now this might, I don't want to put people offside with me here, but clients will often come in with their own designs. They want complete coverage, you know, they want their logo as big as possible. And I know a lot of designers will sort of cringe seeing that sort of stuff, but they generally, you sort of try to do what the client wants. I know at Exotic and a few of the places I've worked, we would try to talk clients out of just bigger is better. You know, you want to get the design to fit the vehicle and to look right on the panel. You don't just print door edge to door edge simply because you can. So the biggest thing that I see is people putting massive text and massive logos right across really difficult areas. And I understand people may have their graphic and they want it to cover the side of the van, but it may go over a sliding door channel. It may go into, if it's an eye load, it's going to go in and out of all those crazy recesses. Occasionally we'd have a designer who wasn't familiar with vehicles, and it's very easy to set something up in a two-dimensional computer screen and go, yep, hit print or hit cut. It's going to work fine. Thinking through how the text, if you've got cut graphics, cut vinyl going over an eye load recess, you're going to have a really hard time getting that all to go in and then line back up again. And the stuff that's in the middle that hits the flat part won't move, but the stuff that goes into the recess, by the time it lays in, could be 30, 40 mil away. So my ultimate tip would be design to the vehicle and don't just say yes to whatever the client wants at your own sort of peril. Try to talk them into avoiding those deep areas. And if they insist, then plan the job, price it right, price it high, because you know you're going to be working to make that graphic fit that crazy panel or that crazy area. The better I'd spend another hour on design. Almost every moment that's spent changing the design to suit you will come back to benefit you. You're going to say your installers are going to get the job on quicker. It's probably going to look better anyway because you've designed it to miss those crazy bits. I think that's the number one tip. It is a bit hard for me to show you.
Is that a common thing? And I mean, maybe our customers here can make a comment too, but is it just you get sent this design and you just want to keep the customer happy, you just want to just get onto it and people don't change it? So is that quite a common thing?
It was definitely a common thing over here. So here in Melbourne, and again, I was lucky working at Exotic Graphics. They had they could sort of pick and choose some of the work that they did, and they would say no to a lot of jobs. I mean, say no is not the right. They would price themselves in such a way that those people that just wanted a big brash graphic, it wasn't the place for them to go. They would go find a cheaper place to get it done, which is fine. So we actually found a lot of designers, professional design companies would come to us with designs, but they had no concept of vehicles. So again, they would just pull out a image or a wireframe online, design something to the side of the van. You know, there's stripes that wrap right around the whole thing, and they just go, yep, how much for this? The design agency might be working with the client, and then they come to you to do the install. That's always a tricky one because they're the design experts and they've made it look all pretty and they've set an expectation to the client. And yes, the mock-up looks beautiful, but the car's three-dimensional. You know, you guys will all know if you've ever had to get a stripe to run from the side all the way around. The two, they just don't, it doesn't all line up. You can do all that stuff with templating, you can work it all out, but it changes the job dramatically. Okay. So if you've got, if you can get a designer, that crossover between installer and designer and someone that's good at both, those people are worth their weight in gold in the industry.
All right. So what if we've got though that our customers, they can't say, or they can't, for example, they can't price themselves out of that job, right? They can't say no, but we've got to do the job. This design's come through. The company's dead set though. No, look, I'm sorry. I want my brand massive. I want it like this, door to door, you know, edge to edge. What product would we be suggesting when they give us a call and go, hey, look, I need a 5-year. What would you recommend for this job that's going to be a nightmare. What would you be coming back with? So are we talking 4550, or we start moving up to go, look, it's going to have to give a bit more give, or are we talking 4600? Are we, fusion? What is it with those worst case jobs?
You could definitely go in with a 4550. So if generally the clients that are going to just be stuck in their ways and they just want it to be big and bold, they're not probably going to care about having a deep channel wrapped in one piece. And if you can explain to them, you can release the channel and patch it, and it'll give a better finish. It'll give a better result in terms of the durability, because it's not going to be stretched in. They're probably going to go for that, and especially if you can go with a cheaper product that you can get on quickly, but you can still have a really profitable job there. Right. If people are asking for total coverage with their logo and they want it to be wrapped completely in, no joins, then you're going to have to go with a premium cast product for that. And I would be printing in that case. So I know sometimes people will go, oh, it's only 2 colors, let's do it in computer cut, let's do it in 2100. And if it's a flat panel, yes, that can definitely be the fastest and most cost-effective way to do it. But as soon as you try to put die-cut text across the side of an iLoad, you will realize why you shouldn't have probably tried that, because letters are going to go into the angles at different ways, and by the time they match back up, your text isn't even going to be in a line anymore. It's going to change the spacing. If you print, you can then wrap that and it holds everything together, because all the white or whatever background color between the letters holds everything, holds that rigidity, and keeps everything in registration.
Okay.
But yeah, I would be starting with a 4500. Yeah, and tell them it's not going to go into the deep channels. You're going to use knifeless tape and patch it. And the biggest thing is communication. If you tell them what they're going to get, then they won't be upset. If they thought it was going to be a one-piece wrap, and then you go, well, it can't be because it has to go in and out, and you don't want to pay for a full cast product, just tell them that at the start. Give them the options and tell them what it'll be if they want a premium cast product, and then tell them what the other option is with a cheaper product with patches, and let them decide. And if they do go with the premium product, it's going to be harder, but you've priced it correctly and it'll be worth your time.
Great. Okay. Awesome. Hey, we've got a few questions. Yeah, no, definitely.
But so subjective.
Yeah, and I understand, and I appreciate it too. I get it. So look, we've got a few questions here though.
Yeah.
So Pukiko Signs have fired through a couple. So window vision film. Do you have any variants in this? So this might be for you as well, James. What is the easiest to install and how, especially on curved back windows, and does it have good print quality? First question.
Well, in terms of our variants, we don't have anything that we recommend for cars at this stage, only for shop windows and things like that. And it's not something that we're really good at, I guess. Like there's other brands out there that do perforated window film far better than us. But do you have any tips on installing window film? I guess I'll steer clear from what has good print quality and things like that, because there's a few different brands, and Steve, you might be able to help the customer out after the call. But in terms of just general tips and tricks, Cal, do you have anything that has helped you over the journey in terms of installing window film, especially on those back windows, whether it be a Ford or whatever?
Yeah, I've never, as an installer and a vehicle wrapper, I've never been a fan of perforated window film on vehicles, and I know a lot of people ask for it. We would always get people wanting to add it to their design or to their wrap. I've never seen it last any product. I've worked with everything, and you've got a couple of options. You either put it on just as it is, and if you put that on a window and I'm talking unlaminated, you're going to get, when it rains and there's dust and road grime, eventually all those little perforations, the little holes are going to fill up with gunk. It's basically just becomes impossible to see out of. So every time we did window film, we laminated it with an optically clear cast lam, which did allow you to get it on, and you could apply it to curved surfaces with a little bit of heat. But again, it's not made, perf window film is not a wrapping film. It's not made to conform to really curved surfaces. So you could get it onto the window, but I mean, even then, the laminate that crosses over those little perforations is just hanging in midair, really, creating a little air pocket. So those will expand and contract with heat, and eventually that film will crack just through UV exposure. It's just impossible. It just won't ever last forever, especially if someone hits it with a high pressure hose. They can actually just pop those little holes. So if you can avoid it, avoid it. If you have to use it, definitely use a high quality optically clear laminate. And try using foam rollers. I've seen a lot of people have really good results with rollers on windows. I know squeegees can sort of leave marks. You can actually just see the zigzag of where you've been with your applicator. Sometimes that doesn't look great on the spot. They do usually settle out, but it doesn't always look good in the moment when the client picks up the car. The other tip I have is use clear laminate strips to seal the edges. So we never ever let a perforated window film go out without the edges sealed with a 5mm strip of clear lam. And that just stops the outer edge being an entry point for water, for moisture.
Okay.
Really increase the longevity of it. And a little bit of heat, if it's curved, a little bit of heat, and just really tension it across the whole window rather than trying to wrap and heat and work out every bit as you go. I'd give the whole area a bit of heat and try to pin it all on in one go, if that makes sense.
Okay. And same customer just said they've been using 510 GT on some real estate signs, but they find it quite thin and see-through. Is there anything else from Arlon that you'd recommend that we've got access to?
So see-through, are they covering another image and they're getting a shadow coming through?
Possibly. If you guys could let us know maybe a bit more detail about that, and we can do that separately if that's all right, and we could definitely help you out with fixing that one up. Grant has asked, is there you probably get this a lot, this question, is there a particular brand of software you'd recommend for vehicle templates?
For vehicle templates. So software, I'm guessing that they mean, is there a particular site or somewhere to get the templates? I mean, so in terms of software, I do everything through the Adobe suite stuff, Illustrator. There's a bunch of different template sites. One of the big ones over here was Fast Cars. There's a few others actually which we can post up. I've lost track now because they pop up all the time. Some of them are paid. You usually have to subscribe or pay per download. I was always a bit on the fence about templates. I would prefer, if possible, to do a mock-up on a photo of a car, which doesn't need to be the scale for the mock-up, and then do all my designing based off measurements. Well, when I say designing, all the pre-pressing and the actual file setup based off measurements. Even some of those paid templates that we downloaded were, 100 to 200 mil out sometimes. We had some real dramas setting up. You assume that your measurement's 5 meters or whatever, you hit print, you add a bit of bleed, and then you put it up on the van and it wasn't actually scaled right. And you'd paid for that template. So you just got to be careful. I wouldn't take anything as gospel on a wireframe, because again, they're turning a 3-dimensional shape into a 2-dimensional shape. But I would get on the forums and ask the people that are using these templates every day and find out what people want to use, what they have the best results with.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's a few out there. But you won't get many good ones for free. Beware of the free ones.
Right. Okay. Good to know. Another question is, would there be any warranty if you mix cast and calendared on a vehicle? For example, a printed cast digital, bit of molding, and a calendared print on the flatter, larger areas using a cast laminate. for basically for cost savings. So I guess they're saying mixing and matching between different Arlon brands. Does that affect the warranty at all? I know we've obviously got products like with Fusion and that are kind of covering, and 4600 covering that as well. So maybe we're best to steer this person in that direction. But there'll be people use it right, and there might be something left in the shop. They've got a little bit of that, a little bit of that left, and off they go. Does that affect warranties at all? Not mixing brands. Just
well, the warranty would be on the piece that they were using, rather than, it doesn't void a warranty to use a different part on the bonnet. Yep. Because if there's an issue with the bonnet, you deal with that product, and if there's an issue with another part of it, you deal with that. So is that, you would agree with that, James?
Yeah, I would. The only, and I'm not sure of this person's shop or how it's set up and things like that, but Steve does talk about time-saving tips and tricks. Yes, there might be some cost savings mixing in, but then depending on how you print and how you laminate and how many printers and laminators you've got in the shop, is the savings you get by mixing and matching. Do you lose all of that in terms of changing the media in your printer and changing your laminate? And it might take half an hour each time you change medias around and things like that. So just look at some of those other areas of your business. I'm not sure if I know where you came from, Cal. It was pretty much just cast digital and cast lam, and didn't matter what the job was. That's what stayed in the printer and that's what stayed in the laminator.
Yeah, it was generally faster to just keep hitting print, and so a lot of jobs got over-specced. But that was the nature of the workflow there. And if you've got downtime between jobs, then definitely it's worth, if you've got 5 minutes, you might as well switch to a more cost-effective film if you can. And another good idea can be switching to our, you guys got much of our polyurethane, our 3310?
Yes. Yep.
So that has an extended warranty.
Yeah, we do have it. Yeah.
Polyurethane, so that can be a good one to use for bonnets and roofs and stuff like that.
Okay, great. Motorcycle helmets, a bit of left field here. Would you wrap it in one go, or
I saw that come in?
Yeah.
No, I would. I mean, so there's two ways to look at that. Yes, it's really cool to see those people put up these videos of wrapping stuff in one go. I get it, like Mini Cooper mirrors, you got to do it one go. There's no way you can put a joint on that. But all these people doing like aerials, those little thin aerials that like they're common on BMWs and stuff and Mercedes. Yes, you can do them in one go. I just don't think that you need to. I think you're far better off to just hide a join on a highlight. I'm all about hiding joins, and you can really trick people. Even installers, you can trick from a meter back if you hide your join well. So I'd go for longevity of the film. I'd rather release where possible. Helmet's a bit hard. There's nowhere to hide a join, but I would never try to do a helmet in one go. You could do it, and you might succeed, and it will make for a cool Instagram video. But as soon as that helmet gets a nick or a scratch, because it's so stretched, it's just going to open up. There's just the film's not made to do a 360 degree. I mean, nothing's made to do that, really. You can do it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. Unless you're just doing it to kind of show a cool technique. If you can do it and get some views on how you did the install, then hey, that can be great.
Cool. Trevor from Abby, we'll get you through those templates. Mate, that's fine. We'll do that afterwards. Thank you. Mike's asked, does Callum have a rule of thumb when to and not to use primer solutions for vinyl application? And does Arlon have one for their own films?
That's a really good question. No, we don't make our own adhesive primer, and that can be a bit of a contentious one, to use it or not. I try not to use primer wherever possible, but I know sometimes it is necessary. It's a tricky one, because I'd always be wanting to discuss that with the client as well. I know, say if you get a slightly older van, they're insisting on it wrapping into a recess. You can tell that the paint quality isn't quite there. You may want to add a bit of a primer to the deep parts of the channel to just really guarantee that it's going to stay in there. I would be trying to do everything in my power to prep the surface before just putting primer on. So if you ever get that chalky, old, sort of dusty paint, a lot of the time we would actually polish the channels just with a bit of very light cutting agent. It can actually shine them back up again, and you go from having that almost matte finish old paint, you can actually shine it back up and really increase the adhesion levels just from doing that.
Yeah.
If you do have to use primer, use it sparingly, maybe pre-mask the area so that it doesn't drip and run everywhere else, and definitely let it outgas because there's a solvent in that stuff. It's also really, you shouldn't be using primer right up close to your face day in and day out and breathing it in. It's got some pretty harsh chemicals in it. So
Okay.
let it outgas for at least half an hour to an hour, and even buzz over it with your heat gun to make sure there's no leftover solvent in there. But use it sparingly and on edges, and think about the removal. If you're the one that has to remove it, think about, is it going to leave, it's guaranteed to leave the glue where you put primer. So you've got to think about your time if you're going to be the one doing the removal.
Okay. Right. I just want to double back to actually some of the products that we've covered and just make sure that we've kind of gone across that. So I know we've gone over 4550, so I think we've covered that off pretty well. That's just, it's new for Computaleta, jack of all trades. So it's flat signage, can go on vehicles, flat only. We've gone into 4600 LX, which is, again, can be used on flat, slight curves on vehicles, and has a stronger warranty on vehicles as well. So it's that next step up. Fusion, we don't stock, right? So we don't stock Fusion at Computaleta, not in any particular reasons. It's just one of those films that it came out, I think, mid last year, give or take, and a lot of changes and things like that. And look, so let's tell the people about this new film and kind of the differences between, 4600 LX, which there'll probably be plenty of users of that in here now, because we sell plenty of it at Computaleta. What's the differences between going from that to Fusion, and are there, what are the key differences? And then the next bit will be is SLX to wrap it all up with our cast offering as well.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think even myself, I'd love to learn a bit more about Fusion. So
yeah.
Cool.
James, you want to tackle the
the
background side of that?
I'll also backtrack a little bit with what you said, Steve, in terms of the difference between 4600 LX and 4550 GTX. 4600 we do warrant for clean removing on vehicles as well, as where 4550 is a permanent for flat. In terms of Fusion to 4600, Fusion is about 20 micron thinner than 4600. Fusion also has the flight technology, the same as SLX, and Fusion we do team up with an intermediate cast laminate. So the total construction for Fusion with the cast laminate is just under 100 microns, so it does look and feel like a cast product. As where 4600, it is a little bit thicker, about 30-40 microns thicker, and it does have the low profile escape adhesive, so it is a little bit tackier when applying it to the surface. So they're the main differences, but when people do put Fusion in their hands, it does look and feel like a cast product like SLX. Would you agree with that, Cal, with all the examples you've done of Fusion?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I first picked up Fusion, whenever it was last year, I thought it was marketed as a wrap film, and I didn't realize it wasn't cast when I first started using it. Whenever I did do my testing for products, I basically just abuse them. I'll wrap things that you shouldn't be, I'll try to do things in one piece, or I'll wrap directly into a bowl and just push it all in one go and just take it to its absolute limits. And I did that with Fusion, and it did everything that I asked of it. And I thought it was cast, and then I learned more about it and realized it's a premium polymeric. So it completely blew me away as to how well it stretched without discoloring, how well it conformed. So yeah, I would totally agree with what you said. If people are used to flight, if there's people out there who use SLX and they like the way it performs, then you're going to really like, you're going to love Fusion, especially with the price as well. if you're prefer, and I know this comes into play a bit more in the New Zealand market with your probably lower average temperatures across the year. If you prefer that higher initial tack and you're happy with 4600 and the Escape technology, then by all means keep using that. It may be doing, if it's doing everything that you need, well then that's great. But if you do like the flight technology and want it to feel like SLX, that it can be a really good option. And it'll do a lot of wrapping. And again, convex curves, no problem. Concave, anything that goes into a door cup or a deep channel, obviously it's better to avoid those areas with fusion. But yeah, anything convex, it'll handle really, really well. So it's a really good option to have when you're quoting. So yeah, I hope that and we'll look at trying to get you some over there.
I've got a question here from Melissa, just in regards to cutting blades. Wore out quite quickly using the 4600, and wondered if the surface of the vinyl was tougher than 500. I'm not too sure, Melissa. I can't answer that. If you can just send a little bit more information through to Steve in terms of your plotter, whether you've laminated it, what blades you use and your settings. Once I get that info, I'll forward it all through to our tech services team and just try and get an answer for you and see if we can get to the bottom of the problem, or if there's anything that's being done incorrectly, but I'm unable to answer. But the more info to Steve, that'd be great.
Cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
So, and then what I think we could do is finish up on SLX. So those that don't know about the product or haven't used it yet, and we'll just, so Arlon's cast offering. And then everyone that's in here, our customers, if you've got any questions, or, you know, we can kind of go free for all. If there's anything that hasn't been mentioned or you want to see, please sing up now. And like I said, I can unmute you. So if you feel like just talking, we can do that and have a chat. People have done it. Or by all means, just type the question into the comment section too. So yeah, but yeah, SLX. So right, we've covered calendared. We've got our 5 years. We know the whole lot now, and we've got this an awesome range. But now we've got this full wrap, right? Like you're saying, like now we've got the cream of the crop. We've got this thing coming in. Arlon's offering is SLX. It's a good almost 2 years old now, I think. Give or take. Yeah. So we've had it for a wee while. We've done well with it. Really, you know, we've had a lot of good feedback. Definitely got its tricks in the cold, so we've been dealing with that each time too. So yeah, I think we'll cover that off. There'll be plenty of people here from the South Island that will be questioning that as well. But look, introduce us to it and take us through it. And the truck's happy as well.
Sorry about that, guys.
Was it at your end?
That was at my end. There was a truck parked right outside the window here. So
of course.
I'll get Cal to talk about SLX and everything that he loves about the product. One thing I would like Cal to talk about today, which wasn't covered off last week, was just the different laminates that we've got with it, because we do have the 3210 laminate, which is 30 micron. It was launched initially with the 3270 laminate, which is 50 micron, which is a little bit thicker. I think, pretty sure, Steve, you've got both yep. laminates, and it seems the New Zealand market's a bit more into the 3270 with the thicker laminate, but maybe Cal might be able to also cover off where or why you might use the 3210, or which users might feel more comfortable using the thinner laminate as well.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to bring up. I kind of got started on the 3210. Obviously both options were available, but I just gravitated towards that being the thinner laminate. So that's my preferred choice. I do notice that the 3270 is a little bit thicker, which, depending on what you're using it for, can be beneficial. So some people want a bit more sturdiness when they're working with the film. They want it to feel like they can be a bit rougher with it when they handle it. The 3210 laminate, it can feel quite thin at times, but I prefer that. I prefer a really thin feeling film. It just feels like it goes into channels a bit easier. There's less resistance. So that's my preferred, that's my go-to. So SLX with 3210 for me is like, that's the flagship. That's the premium product that we offer. So if people are, and you touched on the cold weather stuff, Steve, and for those who can't hear a little bit of an accent, I'm actually from Dunedin myself, so I know it's been 15 years or so, but I know how cold it can get down in the South Island. So I understand, there are challenges. There's challenges when working with any film in the cold, but with our flight technology, the lower initial tack mixed with super cold morning temperatures can make installing with it a little bit trickier. We covered off last week with trying to use temperature control in your factory, and I know that's not always possible, but if you can pre-warm the panel, and that could be throwing a couple of heat guns inside a van if it's a cargo van, setting them upright and just letting them run for half an hour while you're setting up in the morning can make all the difference when you're wrapping a van, to just raise that surface temperature by a few degrees. Even taking 30 seconds and just buzzing over the recess with your heat gun directly before applying it, let it cool down so it's not hot, obviously, but then that can really make the difference between a really cold panel and just a sort of lukewarm panel. So when you can work with it, SLX, for me, is the best printable wrap film out there. The main benefits for me is that it doesn't ever leave glue lines, and you won't ever get dots from the inhibitors in the glue, because we don't use inhibitors. So couple of the other premium wrap films use little tiny glass beads, or these little polymer beads that help it slide around on the surface, but they can move out of place and leave little dots, which end up looking like sand. And in the States, they call that sanding. And you might be familiar with glue lines if you've ever had to wrap into a deep recess and you've gone across back and forward with your thumb, and it's sort of, every time you push your thumb in, it leaves a bit of a line. That's because the glue is so it's so aggressive initially that it's sort of stretching straight away when it's trying to pull back. Those lines often just won't go away. So SLX doesn't do that. Flight technology doesn't do that. And so those two things, getting no glue lines and having no sanding or dots, are the two main. Those things just revolutionized wrapping for me when I switched to SLX.
And the goal with flight was simply just to give, because the tack is the same over the 24-hour period as any other film that we sell and others do. So it's just, the whole point was that initial 30 minutes, 35, 40 minutes of a bit more freedom, that if you do make a mistake or you need to peel something off, I mean, you showed us last week that you rolled up in a ball and you're reheating it and away it goes again. It's
that's right.
That's the main goal, right? It's just give everyone a bit more freedom when.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it reaches. So we talk about the maximum adhesion level, and SLX and flight technology just uses a little bit more time to get to that maximum point. So some of the other well-known brands will get to their maximum point quite quickly, and some of them super quickly. Like, you can lay the panel on, apply it, and it's stuck to the point where you can't lift it back up without damaging the glue. The beauty of flight is that you do get a bit of workability time with it. So we try to dispel the fear that people have, that because it doesn't grab as quickly as the product that they might be used to, they think, well, it's not going to stick as well. But that isn't the case when you work with it. If you heat it down and give it the time to reach its full bond, it will reach full bond and be completely stuck on there. But if in the first, like you said, half an hour, you put it down, there's a hair or a bit of dirt underneath, you do have time to lift it back up and get that out without any risk of glue lines or damage to the adhesive. So in that regard, it's just awesome to work with. You can do bonnets on your own, you can do full panels on your own, because you don't need to worry about it getting scrunched up and grabbing to the panel before you're ready for it to. It sticks when you tell it to stick.
Right.
And when you heat it and let it wet out, the glue wet out.
And just on the two different lamps, so we've got the thicker, we've got the thinner that you prefer, but is there any post-heating temperature differences? So thanks, Cherie. sales account managers sent that through. But any post-heating differences when it comes to the two different lamps?
No, there isn't. I mean, post-heating is something, obviously, that's very important. And I think that people should, where possible, build up the heat slowly. I use very, very high heat, but I keep the heat gun moving at all times. And I'll work on a sort of a 300 mil section and build it up to 90 plus degrees Celsius. So you definitely, if you were to hold it on too small of an area and build it up too fast, you may find that you'll burn through 3210 a bit quicker because it is thinner, but ultimately, no, it won't make a difference. The post-heating is for the actual film below the laminate anyway, for the adhesive to bond to the panel. So build that heat up slowly. You can use very high heat, but just keep it moving at all times.
Right.
And post-heat over 90 degrees for deep recesses.
Okay, cool. Well, I think that might actually be wrapping it up. So we haven't had any more questions come through. I even checked in with our sales team that are watching as well, and everyone seemed pretty happy that we've covered most.
Cool.
So what I'll be doing after this, guys, is that you'll be, Colin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you'll either be directed straight to a survey. Otherwise, we will send out a really small survey just to make sure we're keeping this on point and we're asking the right questions and we're talking about the right things. There will be some deals going out as well with the films that we've talked about. So if any of this tickles your fancy, we will have some really sharp deals to get into level 3 and to level 2 to make sure everyone's got the right films at the right price and how it goes. But this is never meant to be a hard sell on these are the products. Like we get it, especially when it comes to cast. Like I fully get it that it's down to the preference. People, you got your favorite frying pan at home. You know how it works. You know how hot you like it, and it comes down to wrapping as well. So we just want to make sure that our customers have got the knowledge and they know the products that are available. And I think we've covered off. We've got a great range with Arlon. We've been distributing Arlon for almost 40 years, so we've got a long history, and we want to make sure this year carries on to another one. So look, I think we'll wrap it up there. So if anyone has any other questions, I did put my email address in there that you can fire it through. Otherwise, guys, thank you very much for your time today. If there's anything else you want to leave with, or
Can I just add in, Steve? That was a great summary there. I just wanted to add that if you are to purchase Arlon products, it comes with my support as well. So I'm here as your resource across ANZ region. So if you want to look into our products, you buy some, you want help on the job as you're installing it after the fact, whatever the case, you can reach me on Instagram, cal.arlon, or I think we'll leave my email somewhere or details somewhere as well for people to reach me, but Instagram's probably the best way to get me. I'm here, so there's no silly questions, just reach out and I'll do everything I can to support you from across the ditch, and then hopefully we can all link up again once I'm able to get there in person.
I have to have a party.
So don't hold back. I'm here to help.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Cal, thank you very much, mate. Thanks, James, for popping in.
Thanks for having me, Steve. Thanks for everyone attending. Much appreciated. And I hope
great questions, everyone. Thanks again. And we'll get some feedback and look at what we do next. So have a great day and a great week. We'll talk soon.